notes. So please remember, we do not have class on Friday, right? I know you guys are bummed out about that. Um, Today we're going to be talking about resumes. So if you recall, what I stated was, yes, you will be working with career services to do your resumes, but we're going to be talking about the the writing side of it, even though they're going to help you. What you'll learn today is that you have to adjust your resume a lot throughout your career, and sometimes you even have to adjust your resume from job posting to job posting. So the resume that career services is helping you get started with is really just that. It's your starter resume. Hopefully, when they talk to you about job placement, and if there's a job that they have specifically in mind for you, they may even help you adjust your resume again before, referring you to that position. So I want to teach you how to write a resume so when you have to do it on your own, you'll know what to do, right? So getting right into it, when it comes to resumes, it's a written document. But what it really is, guys, it is a response to something. It is a response to a job posting. And it's almost like a conversation you're having with an employer. With that being said, because it is a response, I know a lot of people look at their resume like a document that showcases, all the work that they've done. But if you think about it, it's almost impossible to put everything that you've ever done on 2 sheets of paper, which mostly they only want you to use 2 sheets of paper. So that's almost impossible. So what people are really looking for is for you to respond to the job posting based on what they've asked for. Here's the key. When you are looking at job postings, you are looking at those job postings for what we call keywords. What are those keywords? Well, we've talked about them. Those are those soft and hard skills that companies are looking for. Now, of course, when you look at a job posting, it's not going to say, hey, look at me, I'm a hard skill, I'm a soft skill. No, the job posting is going to give you a description of what that job is. They assume if you know what you're doing, you can identify those skills and make sure when you respond to the job posting that those relevant skills that you possess are on your resume. That's the key. That's the dance that you're doing. So what happens is, here is an example job posting. This job posting is for a welder. And the job posting says, we're looking for someone that knows how to do. Now, I've just highlighted the key words, right? But obviously, the words are not going to be highlighted. They want someone that can interpret blueprints. They're looking for someone that knows how to select and install torches and tips. They're looking for someone that knows how to um, select appropriate MIG and TIG and stick welding, right? So you're going to read this job posting and you're going to do something similar, even if you do it, in your mind, you're going to be highlighting these keywords. And then you're going to say to yourself, oh, okay, this is what they're looking for. If I possess any of these skills, watch this, either through school or through work, I need to have these skills on my resume. And I'll show you where you put them if you don't have it in your experience section, because every resume has different sections. But I want you to notice something. There are both hard skills and soft skills here. Can you guys identify them? Now, I will say this. I didn't highlight one of the soft skills, but if you look at that last bullet, you see where it says working with other team members. Again, most times we just overlook some of those, those words. We look at them as if they're filler words, but you don't want to do that. If they're telling you you're working as a team, that could mean you're going to be working on different projects. It says right there, you're going to be working on projects. That's telling you the type of environment you're going to be in and the type of soft skill that they find important. So you want to make sure you have that skill on your resume. Here is really why you want to make sure you have these skills on your resume. Most companies are using what they call automatic tracking software systems. What are these? These are different software tools that they're going to take your resume, they're going to put it through this software tracking tool, and that tracking tool is going to flag all the keywords that they think are important. And sometimes they even have those keywords weighted, like maybe categories of what's most important. You're not going to know. So that is why it's critical that you include as many keywords as possible on your resume. What's going to happen if you don't? I'm going to tell you now, that little computer system, and we all know how much we love computer systems, especially since AI is, giving everybody heartburn, is going to, either um, move your resume forward, or you're going to get a letter in an email saying, oh, thank you so much for applying. We decided to go with someone else. And I'll tell you this, half the time, a human has never seen your resume. Now, I will say this, there's been a lot of pushback lately with these types of systems because companies have begun to realize that their little ATS system is kicking out people that are really, really qualified, but maybe you'd be surprised to learn that not everybody knows how to write a really good resume, even if they're a doctor or a lawyer. It's not like people, everybody goes to school to learn that, right? Not everyone's had a career prep course. So if you don't know about ATS tracking systems and you're putting on your resume what you think is relevant, and you can get kicked back. So there's starting to be a little bit of concern with that, thank goodness. But because some companies, when you're advertising on Indeed and LinkedIn and all these different platforms, you're going to get hundreds and hundreds of resumes. And of course, HR is like, I don't have time to look through all these resumes. So it's almost an Achilles heel because on one instance, they want to promote their jobs on these huge, huge job boards. But at the same time, now it's like looking for a needle in a haystack trying to find the right person. A lot of companies are going back to posting on their website, which I encourage people to do. I always say if you find a really good job on Indeed, don't apply through Indeed. Go to that company's website if possible and apply directly through their website because they get so overwhelmed with the number of people that apply on Indeed and LinkedIn that you would be surprised. A lot of them just look at the people that are on their website first. I've even heard some companies say that, these job boards will make people feel like, oh my God, if you look on the Indeed.com, for example, and you apply for a job and it says 100 people apply for that job, a lot of people won't apply for the job because they're like, well, I'm not going to go up against 100 people. But in actuality, just because somebody clicked, and that's a default of LinkedIn, LinkedIn will say 100 people clicked to apply, but that doesn't mean they actually applied. Right? Plenty of times you can click to apply, but then you read it and you decide, nah, I'm not going to do it. I know I've done that. I click to apply something, then I look at the application, then I look at all the stuff you want me to do, then you want me to do a screening and the video and all that. I say, forget it. I click out of it. And I never applied. But because LinkedIn will have this algorithm that tells you how many people applied, it will throw some people off. And so now companies are saying, like, don't pay attention to that, apply anyway. So sometimes I just say, like, if you don't want to deal with all that noise, just go to the website and apply. But that still doesn't mean they're not going to use an ATS tracking system. So you still want to make sure that your resume has those keywords. So you may say to yourself, well, Miss Taylor, where do I put these words, especially if I've never done electrical before? Well, your resume should have these sections that you see on screen, right? Your resume has to have some type of heading, a summary, a skills, experience, and education. So of these sections, specifically the summary section, the skills, experience, and education, one of those four, you should be able to put the skill, because if you don't have it in experience, you definitely should have it as a skill that you learned from your education, right? And you can also include those keywords in your summary. I love using like a AI, like a chat GPT. You can put in a job description and you can put in your resume, let's say that you get from career services, and you can say, please adjust my resume. You can tell chat GPT, please adjust my resume so that it captures all the keywords. It will redo your resume for you. And then you can make sure, you just don't submit it. You look to see it's just a computer. It's only doing what you tell it to do. So you can look at that revised resume and you can say, oh, okay, yeah, I forgot to include that, because sometimes it'll give you suggestions on how, the software has seen, because it's gathering data from all over the internet. And if they see that, oh, a lot of people phrase it a certain way, it may phrase it for you on your resume. If you like it, keep it. If you don't like it, get rid of it, because you're like, no, 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 that's not applicable. I don't do that. But it will at least give you some, suggestions on how to include it in your resume. You can even tell the chat, the prompt is what we call it. You can tell it, um, include these, key skills in my summary and skills section, not my experience section, and it'll do it for you. So why is that important? Well, let's go through it. On your heading, of course, obviously you want to have your contact information. Now, I always tell people, don't put your address on your resume. You can put your geographic location. It's okay to put your address if you're going through the website, but if you're going through those job boards, there are scams in job boards. There are people that actually scam, put fake companies up because they want to steal people's information. So only if I don't see a reason why you would want to put your address, but if you do it, only submit that resume with your address to the actual website of a company. Otherwise, just put the city and state. Put Central Florida, Tampa, Florida, Fort Myers, Florida. You don't have to put anything else. It's important that you do put that, because some companies want to make sure that they're hiring people that live within the area. So, they do want to see that, but they don't need to see your full address. If you have a LinkedIn profile, any type of other social media profile, you want to put that. Companies nowadays, they really want to see people. Um, so it's important that if comfortable, of course, we're going to be doing a LinkedIn profile in this class, but they want to see it. I mean, you want to see them too. And here's a hint. When I apply for jobs, especially if they put the person's name, if someone responds back to me in an email, I go to their LinkedIn page and I look to see what they look like too. I want to see what they're about. It just helps you, remove some of the jitters you get. You have to meet someone or talk to someone. I go check them out too. They're going to do the same thing to you. And they tend to like it when you do have these social platforms, so they can do that, right? So you would want to include your LinkedIn profile on your resume as well. Now, pay close attention to this. If you know that most of your experience in electrical is going to be from your class, you are going to write up a summary section that talks about your experience, and you're going to highlight the fact that you have these skill sets, but you're going to mention through education. Again, AI, of course, career services will be helping you, but it can help you with that. Like you're saying, okay, I'm not a writer. I totally get it. You can just put it in AI. You can tell the prompt, please create a summary section for me, indicating that I have these skill sets primarily through education. And it'll write it up for you. And you can decide if you like it, and you can tell it to change it or reword it. It's too many words, reduce it down, however you want to do it. Give me a thumbs up if you've ever used AI before, like ChatGPT. Google has a Google AI prompt. They call it what do they call it? I forget what they call it. Microsoft has one. They all have them, right? And so, I say get used to it. Get used to using it. Everybody uses it. Of course, we hear all this drama behind it, and I get it. If you're not in the IT field, it's kind of like I'm not in the electrical field, and people are all freaked out about data centers. Give me a thumbs up if you've heard about all the drama with the data centers, and how they're stealing all the power. And how people are in the surrounding areas are having to pay for it. Exactly. I see a few hands. So that's a big, big deal. That's a big deal in your industry. So you guys should be reading up on that. You should know what's happening in your industry right now. Data centers, electrical usage is a big issue. It's a big issue because they're pulling off the same power grid as everybody else. And then what are the electrical companies doing? They're spreading the love around. They're making everybody pay for that over usage. And some people are starting to see really huge price increases in their electric use. This one lady I saw said that her electric bill was like $800 once. I remember when I was I think it's here in Florida, I can't remember, but because it's so funny because when I lived in Orlando, I feel like it was worse than me living in Oviedo. I don't know why, but I do remember one summer my electricity bill was like $500-600, and I had at the time I think I had like a one-bedroom apartment, and I was like, "What in the bejesus is happening?" Right? So those things do happen, but at any rate, this is where you want to put those skill sets that you possess specifically through school. The summary section is a good place to put it. All right. Now, the summary section, in addition to those skills that you learn in education, they also will identify the skills that you have from whatever work that you've done. It's important that you have a summary section. I noticed that some people's resumes don't have summary sections, but it's important that you have it. Some people call them qualifications sections. Some people call it a profile. You'll want to have it on your resume because we will be using this section in your class. So please work with Career Services and tell them that Ms. Taylor really wants you to have a summary qualifications profile, however they want to title it, on your resume because you're going to need it when we talk about a personal brand statement. That personal brand statement you're going to be using for your LinkedIn accounts. But we'll talk more about that. So if you can't fit in some skills from that job description in your summary section, then your skills section is where you want to put it in. So in electrical, you guys know all the hard skills that are needed. This is where you can do little bullet points. Don't do more than 6 bullet points, my friends, or if you want to do like 4 on one side, 4 on the other, and you can list some of the skills that you have that you got directly from school. Right? That way, in the summary section, you've kind of already identified that you have these skills through school. So when you list them in your skills section, and then when you go down at your experience, they won't be, hey, they say they have these skills, but I don't see it in their education. I mean, in their experience. Well, you've already identified it in your summary section that you've acquired these skills from school. Because your education, and then now I'm gonna say this, even though I have education and then experience, typically on your resume, you want to have experience before you have education. Some people have education first, and it's okay if you don't have tons of work experience, or like you guys, um, the work experience that you have is not relevant to the work. Not to assume that some of you may have relevant work experience, but the industry standard when putting your education is if you're new to an industry or you don't have tons of experience, put the education right at the top after skills because you want people to see that you do have the education for it. Now, somebody like myself, I've been doing certain things for a long, long, long time. I put my education at the bottom. But if I go into a new industry, then I put my education at the top so they can see that I have that education because they won't find it in my experience. But when it comes to education, here again, I hate to say everything is because of scams, but in your education section, it's important that you put the school and the city and state that that school came from along with your major. Believe it or not, people lie about going to school. They'll just make up a school and then, just say, oh yeah, I went to ABC University. And then if they don't put the city and state, because some companies will look it up to see if there's an actual ABC University. Not everybody that lives in Florida went to a Florida school, right? I can say I went to, whatever university. There's so many schools in America. So they wanted the city and state because if they want to go and say, oh, I never heard of that school before, they want to Google it really quickly. So that's why they want to make sure you have it, right? So you want to have it there. Like you don't want to give anybody any reason to think that you're not telling the truth. You want to also put the date that you graduated. Mostly your month and year is fine. If you are still attending, if you're going to graduate within that year, you can go ahead and put that year. So let's say if you're going to graduate December 2026, you can put December 2026. If you're not going to graduate within that year, then you just put presently attending or currently attending. That way they'll know, okay, this person is in school, but they're not graduating anytime soon. Now, when it comes to your experience, obviously this is a key area. For those of us that don't have hard skills, what you want to do with this section, so let's say you used to sell insurance and now you're going into electrical, but they did say that one of the soft skills that they wanted is team, good teamwork. Maybe they also said they want you to have some project management. Well, you didn't have that in electrical, but maybe you had it in your sales experience. So you want to play up any soft skill that you may have, because number one, you want it on their resume for that ATS system to catch, but also you can let them know, I may not have been a team player at this electrical company, but I have been a team player. I have worked on projects before, and project management is project management, whether it's an electrical or the hospital. So here is where you can highlight some of your soft skills. Does that make sense? Is that making sense, guys? You guys are a quiet bunch, so I always feel like I'm just rambling. Am I making sense? Very good. Okay. So this is where you want to include those skills. Here again, you do want to include the name of the company, the position that you had, and the city and state. Yes, people make up companies. Can y'all believe it? I know, listen, I clutched my pearls when I found out that people did that. My brain does not immediately go to how can I get over. My brain always just goes to, oh, you just tell the truth, and telling a lie should be your last option. It gives me too much anxiety anyway. But people make up stuff, so they also want to be able to look up a company if they've never heard of it. So it's one of the reasons why they want you to put the city and state of that company. Now, here is how I write experience section. Whenever I write my experience section, and I say that because resume writing is an art, is not a science. So everybody writes it differently. So I'm just going to tell you what the industry standard is. When you write that experience section, you always want to have like a brief little summary of what that job is. So if I was writing about myself working as a faculty member at Southern Tech, I would have Southern Tech, I would have online faculty, the year I worked and where Southern Tech is, and then I would have a brief overview of me working as an online career prep faculty member. Right under that brief overview, I would have at least 2 to 3 bullets of how well I've done that job. We call those key accomplishment statements. This is important because you're not just telling someone that you've done the job, you're actually telling them how well you've done it. So for my key accomplishment statements, I may say something like, a 95% pass rate over the last 3 years of working at STC. Or I might say, 89%, or that's not a good number. Let's say 98% retention year over year of students. So what am I doing? I'm not just telling them that I was a faculty, I'm telling them how well I did it. So a good rule of thumb, anytime you do your experience section, you want to have a brief statement with those keywords, as many keywords as possible, and then you want to have a few accomplishment bullets underneath that paragraph so they'll know how well you did the job. When it comes to how you format your resume, most resumes are done in what we call a chronological formatted resume. Some people call it a timeline. Basically, it's the most recent job that you've had, followed by every other job up to 10 years, but you can go back 20 years. They just don't want your resume to go past 2 pages. 2 pages is the norm. Not that you can't have more than 2 pages. I have more than 2 pages. I don't care what they say. Mine is a little bit longer, but it all depends on how long and how senior your position is. But people do want you to try to keep it down to 2 pages. So your timeline will be, back 10 years. Now, if you've worked at one job for 10 years, and obviously that's for people that are a little bit more senior, then you're going to go back further than 10 years. There's another type of resume called a skills resume. Most people don't use it. You see it a lot in like the IT field because obviously with IT, the emphasis is on different software that you know how to manipulate. So if I was a coder, if I did web development, then I would put like a web development and I would talk about the work I've done at web development. And then I would just list out the different companies that I worked for in web development because they're more concerned about me being able to do web development than who I did it for. But that is very industry specific. And then obviously a combination is both of those. You give a brief description of the work you've done, but you can also give a brief description of how you did it at that company. Again, you don't see those two that much because it's really specific. I'm sure they have it in other industries, but with me being, in IT, I've seen it mostly in that industry. Now, because they're using these ATS systems, most companies are going to tell you they want to see your resume via PDF. Make sure you pay attention to that. You'd be surprised how persnickety some HR people can get when you don't follow the rules. They don't want to have to convert your Word document to a PDF. So if they say, please submit in a PDF, and if it's really big deal to them, they'll make a big deal about it in the email. Make sure you save your resume in PDF. That only requires you to save as in your Word and use that drop down. Instead of saving it as a Word document, just choose PDF and make sure that is the one that you give them. All right. So a non-traditional resume is really just your LinkedIn profile. Way, way, way back in the day, we used to have create our own web pages, but that is what LinkedIn is, guys. LinkedIn is your own web page. If you think of LinkedIn as a website, and each person that goes onto LinkedIn has a web page. That's all LinkedIn is. That's, you can think of that as a non-traditional resume because you will identify all the work that you've done. But when we get to LinkedIn, you also learn that when you do a LinkedIn page, you don't want to like copy and paste your resume. You can be a little bit more descriptive when you talk about the different work that you've done because it really is a showcase, right? So you want to use a little bit of a different style of writing when you do LinkedIn. All right. Now, because if you have to, let's say, if you're an electrical and you applied to a government contracting company, you applied to a residential company, maybe you applied to the electrical company, you've applied to 3 different companies, they're not all going to want to see the same thing, right? Because if you look at their job postings, one may say they want more of this than somebody else. So that means that you have to adjust your resume 3 times to make sure you include those words. Make sure you proofread, guys. Like, don't be that person that made a mistake and sent the electrical company's resume that you were really trying to send to the government contracting. Like, we all do it, right? Because in today's society, you will be sending out a lot of resumes. Like, hopefully not so much for those of us that are applying locally or wherever, but typically you have to send out a lot of resumes, and it's so easy to make that mistake. So make sure you proofread before you send your resume out. So the last thing is professional references. Most companies want to see references. They want to see it on a separate piece of paper, so you'll have a reference sheet that kind of looks like this. 3 is normally the norm. The only thing I'm going to say about this, in addition to making sure your information is on it, a lot of people forget to put their information at the top. Number 1, please let the people know that they're on your reference. Number 2, try to stick to their professional addresses. Ask them before you do their phone number or their email if they prefer a personal, because some people, like some companies, are really strict about them not using their company as a reference, and they'll tell their employees, like, if you're going to give a reference to someone, you can't do it on behalf of our company, which is duh. But, so they may say, oh, don't send it to my email at work, send it to my personal. So just ask the question. Most companies will want to know where this reference works, but when it comes to contacting them, you can put their personal email and not their company email. But that's why it's important to let your references know, especially if you got a call back after an interview and they want to see the references. I always let my references know. And what I do as a courtesy is I will send the job description, and I will even tell my reference, hey, make sure you really talk about that project that we did, because this is a project-based job. If you have good references, you don't have to like coach them. They're referenced because you already are comfortable with what they're going to say. Most companies are doing like these little survey documents anyway. So if, the more you give your reference in terms of, what you want them to focus on, what the job entails, or even giving them a quick call, the more that they can appreciate that. I know I appreciate that. I've been given references for people that I've worked with for 20 years. I have people 10 years back saying, oh, can you do me a reference? I'm going to a new job. Of course, as long as they give me the information, I don't mind doing that. All right. So in your assignment today, and this is not your participation question, I'm going to show you a quick demonstration of what I want to see for this particular assignment. I want you to practice going to a job board, and you can use whatever one you want. I don't care if it's Indeed, LinkedIn, ZipRecruiter, and I want you to find 3 job postings of the same job. And when you find those job postings, you may have to look through a few. I want to see at least 3 job postings that are looking for the same hard skills, at least 3 of the same hard skills, and at least 1 of the same soft skill. So when you turn in this assignment, it's going to look something like this. It's going to look like, and this is just an example, please don't do veterinarian. You're not in a veterinarian field. Yours is going to say electrical. It's going to be like Indeed search electrical technician. And then you're going to, and I'm going to show you where to get these at in a second. You're going to put each of those positions, position 1, 2, and 3. And then you're going to tell me, of these 3, here are the 3 hard skills that they had in common, and here's 1 soft skill that they have in common. I want you guys to get used to seeing what these hard and soft skills look like. Does that make sense? So really quickly, if you go to, and I'm just going to share my screen because I have it up for you. Let me put up Indeed.com. So here's Indeed. And again, I'm just using VA as an example. I put in veterinary assistant. And then here, all these positions came up. Now, if you remember, I said to you, you want to try to, you could work at the government, you can work at, a private. So if I'm a veterinary assistant, maybe I want to look for only the ones that are talking about working at the hospital, not, somebody working at an animal shelter, because they're going to work different type of skill set. So Ms. Taylor want me to find at least 3 with very similar heart and skills. So this first one here is at a hospital, right? Kissimmee Hospital. So if I click on that, on the right-hand side is going to give me, that job posting. So I'm going to go down and I'm going to look at that job posting and I'm going to pay attention to what skills they have, try to identify those hard and soft skills, right? This is practice. And then right here is where you're going to grab that link. You just click on it. And if you see down there on the left, it says link copied. And then you can copy and paste in Word, or if you have your assignment open into text box, you could just paste it right there. And so, but you may have to find the 3 that you want first, right? So you can look at this one, maybe you can copy it and kind of see what those hard and soft skills are. Then I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to say, okay, let me see if I can find another one at a hospital, you know. Okay, here's another one at this hospital, right? And then I'm going to look and see what skills they want. Oh yeah, they kind of want at least 3 of the same hard skills. I'm going to grab this one. Y'all see what I'm doing? And then you'll create the posting that I told you, that the response to the assignment. 3 of those links, identify the hard skills, identify the soft skills. At least 3 hard skills, at least 1 soft skill, because a lot of companies don't spend too much time on the soft skills. They'll mention 1 or 2 things. So at least 1 similar soft skill. Any questions on that, guys? Sounds good? All right. So let me stop that. Let me go back to your, hold on, let me do this. I want to say this because I think I forgot to say it. You guys know that when the week opens up, all of your assignments open up. So you don't technically have to wait until Thursday to do Thursday assignment. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but I wanted to mention that, so in case I forgot. So this week is closing out this Sunday. So make sure you have everything turned in for this Sunday. And when Monday comes again, you will have all of next week open. All right, sounds good? All right, here's your participation question for today. Here's what I want to know. Hopefully make me feel good. Give me 3 things you learned about resume writing today. Did anybody learn anything about resume writing today? I didn't really learn anything, but let me just tell this lady yes, so she'll get us out of here. Hopefully you learned one thing. If you didn't learn anything from me, maybe you can learn something from chapter 7. Make sure you read it. Give me 3 things about resume writing that you learned. All right? All right, guys. Remember, we do not have class tomorrow. That means that I will see you guys back here on Monday. Have a great, great weekend. Thank you so much. Please turn in your participation question by 10 o'clock, okay? Or sooner. I'll talk to you guys on Monday. Have a great weekend.